Welcome to part 2 of our home preparedness series. Today we're going to talk about water. All right, so in part 2 of this series, we're going to discuss water. We know that water is probably the most important thing that we're going to need in natural disasters, right? Whether it's a wildfire, whether it is a hurricane, we're trying to, go to a shelter, whatever, we're gonna need access to clean water for hygiene, sanitation, and just for drinking, because you need quite a bit of water for that. And so what I've got here is a few different examples of ways that we can access water, to have water on hand. And I wanted to go through a few of these scenarios with you. So you can see here that we've got, bottled water, gallons of water. How did that get in there? Because surely you don't need alcohol through any of these scenarios, right? So we'll just, we'll put this down here for now. That'll be for another episode. Okay, so let's talk about water. Whenever we consider some of these scenarios, again, maybe it's a hurricane, maybe it's a wildfire, maybe it's a blizzard, we need water every day to drink, okay? The rule of thumb, what they say is you need a gallon of water per person per day. That can add up very, very quickly. So let's think about this for a second. If you have a household of 4 people, okay, 4 adults, that is 4 gallons every single day. Now, you need to be prepared at a minimum of 3 days of supplies before you can expect any type of government or nonprofit to get in there. I would recommend even a little bit longer than that, but we're doing the basics right now, so let's just shoot for 3 days and call it good for now. You can increase that supply as we move along. So take that into account when you start assessing where you need to begin. 1 gallon per person per day. However, I live in the South, and if it's during the summertime, I can drink way more than 1 gallon. So let's consider this for a moment. Let's think about this scenario. You live somewhere in the South, it's very hot, let's say it's summertime, power goes out, okay? And you've got a power outage. As a result of this extended power outage, you may not have tap water, which we're gonna talk about in just a second. So what that means is you're gonna have to rely on water, either that you have, or you're gonna have to maybe boil your own water if you still have pressure. But you're probably gonna drink more than 1 gallon of water in a day. If you're hot, if you're outside trying to clean up debris, fix your house or whatnot, you're going to drink more than 1 gallon. So that's just kind of at a minimum. So be very cautious of that, because when you become dehydrated, your organ systems start shutting down, and that is not good for anyone. Okay. So let's talk about what I have up here, and then we'll discuss some tap water things. Okay. So first off, what I see a lot of people doing, in terms of preparing, let's say a hurricane is coming or a storm or whatnot, everybody goes out and buys bottled water. Now, I'm not going to be too big of a hater on that, because bottled water definitely has its place. You can throw it in a bag. It's not that heavy. You can carry 1 or 2 bottles. You're good to go. Okay, awesome. The problem with this is, number one, they're very expensive and they take up a lot of space. Okay, and what I mean by that is, I opt to buy gallons of water. You can also buy the big 5 gallons, which is even better. This is much more cheaper than this. I got online last night and did a little price comparison. A gallon of water from the grocery store that I shop at is like $1.30. Some cases you can find them for 60 cents, depending on where you go. You can go to dollar stores and Walmart and all these different places. But this, a 20 ounce, this is a 16, but a 20 ounce bottle of 24 was like $11. It was 3 times as more expensive than a gallon, 3 gallons of this. So in this case, if you went and bought the 24 pack of these, it'd be right around 3 gallons at $11, whereas I can buy 3 gallons for under $5. Okay, so you're getting more bang for your buck. And these, what's really nice about some of these is they are squared off. You can really stack these and place them in a configuration that doesn't take up nearly as much space as you would something like a water bottle. Again, each has its own place, okay? I recommend maybe having a mixture of these, but really focusing on your gallons or even the big 5 gallons, okay? A few pieces of advice here for water storage. Do not store your water on your garage floor, okay? Number one, the plastic interacts with the concrete and you can foul your water that way. Number two, it's more likely to get bumped and create a hole in that. Number two, do not store these in your big Tupperware boxes. So later on in the series, we're going to talk about food storage. I'm a big fan of the big Tupperware boxes. I had a gallon of water like this tucked in there with some of my food. And what had happened when in all of the shifting and moving around, I got a hole punched in here and it leaked out and destroyed about half of my food stock that was in there. So keep your water separate from your food as to not have some type of accident. I would recommend if you're going to keep them on the floor, just put a piece of cardboard underneath them or a piece of plyboard to keep them out of the way and out of direct sunlight. Do not go and buy your water off the sidewalk. Sunlight interacts with the plastic and that can actually contaminate your water, okay? Now, if you're in a life or death situation, it doesn't matter, just drink it, okay? So these are kind of the two areas that most people are looking at in terms of water storage. Now, if you just have some plastic bottles, you can refill these either at some of the places that have really good filtration systems or maybe you have your own at home. The only thing with that is understand that you may be introducing bacteria because a lot of these water purifying plants undergo a sterilization process to prevent any type of bacteria. So if you're storing your own water like this, okay, you do have to be very cautious of how long you have that water. Okay, so let's discuss that scenario. So let's say that you do still have tap water, but you don't have any stored water. The scenario that often plays out is when you have a disaster of some sort, again, name your scenario, there's still ample water supply that's purified and drinkable for usually a couple of days after. Again, it depends on, if the plant was damaged, if they have generator power, all of these different things, lots of different scenarios. So you might have water for a couple of days. I would recommend that you do fill up containers. So here we have like a camping container that I take quite a bit that can hold 5 gallons of water. Okay, these are great. I love these things. This one's an Aqua-tainer. You can see the little measurement, which you can't really see it anyway. It's got a nice little spout. That way you can really manage how much water you're using, which is really nice. However, understand that this water will only store for so long. Okay, so you want to be really cautious of that. If you are saving tap water, that's great. Just kind of keep an eye on it. If it starts to taste off, you don't want to drink it. You might want to start boiling that water the longer it's out, okay? The other thing that, we can see these Aqua-tainers are great, but maybe you don't have that, okay? One of the recommendations I often see is if you see a storm coming or something has happened and you suspect that you're only going to have a limited supply of water in the next couple of days, you can fill up a bathtub, you can fill up your sink, you can fill up buckets for flushing your toilets because all you have to do is pour water in that and it will automatically flush. You can use those for sanitation, for cleaning your dishes or whatnot, and that's fine. You can totally use that water for those. And what I would recommend is don't use your supply of your drinking water, obviously, for things like washing dishes. Fill these things up and use those for that, okay? I know most of this is fairly common sense, but it's a good reminder to kind of keep these in mind when you're trying to plan out what to do for water. Okay, the last thing that a lot of people are interested in is, well, how do I purify water? Okay, well, if you're at home and you have some way of boiling water, maybe on your grill, maybe you do still have electricity or something like that, you can, or your gas, you can boil water, right? But a lot of people can easily purchase water filters, and these things are great. I've taken some of these Lifestraws out and drank from ponds and lakes, and they work amazingly well. The Sawyer minis are really fantastic. These guys are awesome. These do a great job of removing a lot of potential parasites and things that you might get. So having some type of water filter on hand is always a good option, so that you might have water, but you're under, let's say, you have to boil your water. I know where I grew up, we had that quite a bit. Because one thing that you guys have to understand is If the water pressure begins to drop, okay, this is part of this issue. When the water pressure begins to drop from the water plant to your house, that can potentially allow contaminants into the water mains. Now, I know that seems weird, but here's what's going on. By creating a pressure from there to here, it's a positive pressure out, so nothing can get into those pipes, because there are leaks everywhere in utility districts, okay, and water mains all over the place. Okay, but when there's water pressure, the water's coming out, nothing's going in. But when water pressure drops, you could then potentially see a kind of a backflow situation where things can get into the mains and then get to your house. So this is why you do those, you know, the boil your water is in effect, all the signs and stuff go up. So by having something like this that can remove any of those possible contaminants, you're saving yourself a trip to the hospital if you get sick, okay? So check out these. Again, I'll have a lot of these down below in the links if you're interested in grabbing one of these. My favorite is the Sawyer Mini. It does a fantastic job, not only backpacking and hiking, but again, like I said, if you are in a scenario where you're still at home but you need water, you can cycle through. This is 100,000 gallons you can cycle through this filter, and it's efficient in that scenario. Okay, so that is water. Double check everything, right? Everything that you see here. Count how much water you need. Get a little bit extra. Think about, is it winter, is it summer? Double check your math on that. Have a backup system is what I say, so that if you do happen to run out of water, that's okay. You do have this scenario where, hey, you know what? I've got a water filter and I can at least drink the water from the faucet until I can get out and get some more water. Because I can tell you that whenever a disaster happens, when you don't have water, things get really kind of crazy trying to get access to water. I've gone out and seen people in line after line after line just waiting to get water for the next couple of days. If you have that on hand, you're not out there, you're not having to wait on supplies to arrive. You have them on hand already, okay? All right, everybody, thank you for tuning into this part. On our next part of the series, we will discuss some food resources.